Well, working in fisheries, we're most concerned about how the oil has impacted the larvae of our commercially important seafood species. Most of our seafood species are estuarine dependent, which means they spend their larval life history offshore and then they move into our nearshore marshes where they mature and grow. So at one time, the oil covered at least 40% of the offshore larval grounds. So we're very concerned about the impact on those planktonic larvae, and are we going to see diminished recruitment? Are fewer animals moving offshore, inshore? So I work primarily with blue crabs, and one of the projects that we're working on now is to measure recruitment. How many crab post larvae are coming from offshore inshore, and we use very innovative, very inexpensive collectors. And as the larvae are initially planktonic, meaning they're in the upper portion of the water column, but as they move into and come into the marsh, they settle to the bottom. So our collectors afford them an artificial habitat to settle on, and we monitor this daily. We have samplers from Biloxi, Gulfport actually, to Pascagoula, and we monitor them every day, 7 days a week, and we will over the entire spawning period for the blue crab, which is April through October. Our sampling is concentrated in Mississippi, and we're trying to cover all of our coastal waters. Because of the devastation from Katrina, it's been very difficult to find piers or structures in Hancock County that we can use. So we're primarily located in Harrison and Jackson counties. I think we need to monitor at least for the next 2 or 3 years in the manner that we're monitoring now, and that will give us a handle on recruitment. Actually, the state of Mississippi is very fortunate in that the laboratory has maintained a 37-year database on abundance of juveniles of our estuarine-dependent species. So we have a lot of information that we can use to assess change. What we're monitoring are the host larvae and very early juveniles. And as crabs mature, they will move from those nearshore marshes out into more open waters, and then we pick them up in our trawls. So as we go from this time of the year when they're just moving in and they're very small until, say, October, November, December, when they're moving out into open water, we'll also have some idea of the size of our juvenile population, and we can look back over those 37 years and use it to look at change. I think it's important for us to look at some issues over the long term, and this would be many years. And from other scientific studies, we know that we've had oil enter the marine food chain through plankton, recent research from the University of South Florida, from our work with our blue crab larvae. And so we need to be doing those kinds of long-term ecological studies for areas, particularly in Louisiana, that were hard hit and have oil in their sediments. There's going to be chronic exposure of these small organisms that inhabit those nearshore marshes. And so we need to be prepared to do that kind of tedious monitoring that's going to be required. Our Department of Environmental Quality, our Department of Marine Resources in Mississippi have conducted an aggressive survey of the tissue, muscle tissue of invertebrates and fishes, and so far have found that they're safe to eat. It's critical that our agencies who are charged with those functions continue to do that, so that they give people that reassurance, and I hope that monitoring will continue. Where the oil is, the University of Georgia just came out with a study which is almost the opposite of the previous findings, in that they feel that most of the oil is still in the Gulf. And so that is a question. And I think it's important to continue to look. We need to look for answers. We need to understand what's happening to the Gulf, even above the seafood safety issue. And I hope that the funding will be there. It's been very slow in coming, and they need to be out there doing these things now. I don't believe that it's getting to some of the scientists who need it. And while some of the larger universities have received funding for some of these cruises or have the funds themselves to conduct those, we don't. And we're sort of the folks who are out in the field every day, and we know these waters, we know the organisms that we work with, and we're working on very limited budgets, and analytical costs are high, and so we do need for some of that funding to begin to trickle down. The whole thing, I think, was a surprise, and how it has unfolded, I think it's unfolded in ways that we did not envision. And I believe that we need a unified, open, transparent approach to research, so that we can share information. No one person or institution can figure this out. And it is a giant puzzle, and everybody has small pieces. And so we need that kind of organizational structure that can allow us to function in an environment where we feel that we can share our information without being subject to litigation or chastisement. It needs to be open and free. I was very fortunate, along with one of my colleagues, Dr. Rich Fulford, to receive an NSF Rapid Response Grant, which allowed me to do my sampling to look for recruitment and post-larval settlement for blue crabs. And one of the difficult things for all scientists working in the Gulf is that you have to, by and large, get your own funding. And so most of us are already working on projects that we have gotten funded. And so what we do for the oil spill response, in many cases, is unfunded, above and beyond, and many long hours. And we have the same personnel we have now that we had prior to the spill, and yet our workload has doubled just in responding to media, responding to the public who were concerned, getting out. And there was a big push early on in the spill to get out and collect baseline samples before the oil actually touched Mississippi. So we have some researchers here who have a huge collection of pre-oil samples, but no analytical money to get those samples analyzed. So it's a difficult working environment, and it's very frustrating and can be very depressing. I have up days and down days, and with the uncertainty about the oil and where it is, and our lack of understanding of Corexit or the dispersant and how it's operating. It's frustrating for a scientist. You always want an answer. Well, when the spill first happened, everybody was concerned about getting those baseline samples, and so there was a lot of effort put into just actually getting out into the field and collecting. And we had assumed that there would be funding to help us do that collecting and then to do the analytical work necessary. That didn't happen. And I'm standing here today without funding, with the exception of the NSF grant, which is allowing me to collect. We're seeing some interesting things in our crab larvae. We would like to have the ability to send those to a laboratory and have them analyzed. So it's been a handicap for all of us. The other thing that I think it's important for people to understand is that science changes every day, and every day the conditions are different, and every day things are different. And so the answers are going to come a little bit at a time over a long period of time. So the public shouldn't expect that we're going to understand this tomorrow, or that we should have understood it the day that the well was capped. So it's going to be a long process.